Hey friends, I'm Henry with BrainStormAcres. We're going to go for a little walk. We're going up to the water tanks. We'll be going down by the greenhouse, the utility building, and to Irene's studio. Now you may be wondering why. And the answer is we have a lot of electrical things that we're doing. Here by the water tanks, we have all manner of electrical things that could be going on. But this is a long way from the utility building. You may recognize these solar panels. You've seen them a bunch on a bunch of our shows. These panels were bought over about a 4 or 5 year period of time. The oldest ones are probably putting out energy at about 80% or 90% of the maximum rated capacity. The newer ones are a bit better. Now the question is, what do these panels have to do with anything? Well, let's walk around to the utility building. These batteries are high-capacity lead-acid batteries. They're about 13 years old, which means they're a good 3 years beyond their expected life. Those batteries supply an awful lot of power. Or they did when they were new, but they're getting old now, they're getting worn out, it's time to be replaced. The new pieces of the new solar system. I'm staying with the Outback products. That's the same products I chose 16 years ago when I originally designed this solar system. I'm updating, and I'm going from a 12-volt system to a 48-volt system. I'll explain that in a little bit. Now, when I started, lithium-ion batteries would have been a really awesome choice, but they really weren't available 15 years ago, so I had to use the lead-acid batteries. Now, the price of lithium-ion batteries is reasonable, and I can afford it. Well, more or less afford it. It's a long-term investment, and hopefully it's going to work out. All of these components are on a pallet. It was shrink wrapped at the warehouse. Good thing I had a box truck to pick it up. Our electrical system here on the homestead is redundant. Irene's studio is separate from the house. There's batteries, inverters, everything necessary to operate the studio by itself and not draw down the household batteries. Now the other advantage is, in the case there's a problem with our main solar system, I can cheat power out of Irene's studio and keep things going. Any solar system is based on the panels that are used to convert sunlight to electrical energy. Our system has a total of 12 panels that can produce about 2,400 watts of power when the sun is illuminating the panels evenly and completely. A very simple solar system has solar panels and a battery. The battery is used to store the energy from the solar panels for use when it's dark. To complete this really simple solar system, all we need is an inverter. The inverter is going to take the DC power, that's the power from a battery, and turn it into AC power. That's what your house uses. But things aren't quite that simple. We need another box in our system. And that's a charge controller. That goes in between solar panels and the battery. Now those charge controllers turn the voltage produced by those solar panels into the voltage that a battery can use to be charged, or an inverter can use to create AC power. There are many different kinds of charge controllers. Which one is right for you and for your particular circumstance depends on exactly how you're going to be using the system. It's easy to find cheap ones that are a few tens of dollars, or in our case, we're using a more expensive charge controller, which is in the range of $500 to $600. Why do we start with 12-volt power system? Well, the answer is pretty simple. The higher the DC voltage that you start with, the more efficient the conversion is going to be. But it's much more expensive in terms of batteries. So if you're going to use a 12-volt system, you only need one 12-volt battery, or in our case, 6 2-volt batteries put in series. Now there's a variety of advantages using one configuration or another, but it's valuable to know that one of the major issues actually has to do with the actual capacity of an individual battery. The higher the capacity of the battery, the longer it's going to last, the easier it is for it to dribble out that energy over time to the inverter. But when you go to a higher voltage, it's more expensive. But let's take a look and see what happens. Our 1000 watt example requires 83 amps at 12 volts. That means that we have to pull 83 amps out of that 12 volt battery in order to supply 1000 watts or 1 kilowatt to the inverter. All we need to do is double the voltage of that battery to 24 volts. That results in cutting the amperage that's required to produce 1000 watts in half. So now at 24 volts, all we need is 41.5 amps. We can take the next step, which is what we're doing, and that is to run our system at 48 volts. If you take a look at the amount of current that you have to supply, that's only 20.75 amps. Well, those numbers may not mean a whole lot right off the bat to you, but when you reduce the amount of current that has to come out of the battery is more efficient. The higher the battery voltage, the easier it is on the batteries, the easier it is on the inverter, the lower the gauge the wire has to be to hook the batteries up to the inverter and everything else. So it vastly simplifies the system. On the other hand, it does increase the number of batteries that you need. Now there's been one big change in battery technology in the past 10 years, and that is the lithium-ion battery, and a variety of lithium chemistries have really come down in cost. When we built our first system, lithium-ion batteries were cost prohibitive. So in a nutshell, the reason why we're updating our solar system is to go from a 12-volt system to a 48-volt system, to switch our battery chemistry from a lead-acid battery to a lithium-ion battery, all of which results in a more efficient system that will last longer and produce more reliable energy. Well, I hope this is a nice brief overview of what we're doing and why. Please leave any questions down below in the comments, and I'll try to answer them. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications, because we're going to be building this system out over the next week.